Morning comes. No alarm blaring, no schedule waiting, no phone lighting up with messages. Just complete quiet and you, alone with your thoughts. That silence feels odd, almost uncomfortable, and then it surfaces, that nagging feeling of doubt, that tightness in your chest, that yearning not for company, but for confirmation that you matter to someone out there. This is when most guys panic. They grab their phones, send messages to people they shouldn't contact, scroll mindlessly through social media just to feel connected. Why? Because they've been taught that silence means something is wrong with us, that if no woman is texting, if no friend is calling, then maybe you falling behind. Maybe nobody wants you. Maybe you just not good enough. But what if this silence isn't punishment? What if it is actually an opportunity? A doorway most men are too scared to walk through. Society taught you to run from being alone, but nobody ever explained what happens when you actually embrace it, when you stop hunting for distractions and finally confront the quiet. Here is the truth. The man who welcomes solitude, who walks his path alone by choice, isn't weak. He is powerful because he is building something invisible to others, something inside himself that can be shaken. This message isn't meant for everyone. It is for those tired of never being chosen first, tired of putting on acts for approval, tired of making themselves smaller to fit into spaces they outgrown. It is for the man who is finished running and ready to stand tall. In our world full of loud opinions and desperate attempts to get attention, the man who chooses quiet becomes unforgettable. This isn't about isolating yourself. It is about reclaiming who you are. You not escaping the world. You returning to your true self. Too many men drift aimlessly from one woman to another, from job to job, from shallow friendship to shallow friendship, chasing validation like it is oxygen they need to breathe. But have you ever stopped to ask, what happens if I quit chasing and just sit with myself? What happens is complete transformation. Your thinking becomes clearer, your voice grows more confident, your standards rise higher. And here is the surprising part. The moment you stop needing others to recognize your worth is exactly when they finally see it. Before we continue, I want you to write one thing in the comments. I choose solitude to forge my strength. Not because it sounds impressive, but because you done hiding. Because you were ready to stop chasing and start becoming. This is your line drawn in the sand. Type it, own it, and let us begin. First point, the fear of silence. Imagine sitting in darkness with no escape routes, no notifications, no plans, nobody asking for your time. Just the sound of your breathing and something heavier underneath. Your thoughts. Most men don't actually fear being alone. They fear what being alone reveals. Not the absence of other people, but the presence of truth about themselves. Silence isn't empty. It is confrontational. It doesn't yell at you or shame you. It simply opens the vault where they stored everything. The regrets you buried, the decisions you postponed, the versions of yourself you promised to become but never did. Suddenly they all appear uninvited and unfiltered. That girl who disappeared from your life, that job opportunity you never pursued, that promise you made to yourself when nobody was watching, then broke. You try looking away, but there's nothing left to distract you. No conversation to hide in, no relationship to lose yourself in, no role to play. It's just you facing the truth you've been avoiding for years. And now comes the real question. Will you finally face it or run away again? That's why most men stay in constant motion, jumping from woman to woman, goal to goal, screen to screen, not to build something meaningful, but to escape something, themselves. Because silence strips away the mask, and when that happens, you either break down or wake up. At first, the silence feels brutal. It tightens your chest. It amplifies every insecurity louder than any voice could. You not enough. You will always be forgotten. Nothing you do really matters. But if you stay with it, if you breathe through the chaos, if you stop trying to escape, something changes. You begin to realize you're still here, still breathing, still capable. And those thoughts, they're not who you truly are. They just echoes, old scripts playing in your mind. They knock at your door, but you have to let them in. That's when clarity arrives, quietly, without fanfare. Just a calm knowing about yourself and your path forward. You aren't defined by your past mistakes, by your regrets, by the woman who decided to leave, or by that time you came up short. Your true identity is the man who stayed present, who didn't look away, who sat surrounded by his own inner turmoil and refused to escape it. That quality is uncommon. That is genuine power. That is strength of character. Meaningful growth doesn't begin in the weight room, not in self-help books, not in motivational podcasts or inspirational social media clips. It begins in stillness. It starts the exact moment you decide you are worth facing yourself honestly. You remain seated in the middle of your emotional storm, letting it howl, letting it swirl around you, letting it tear through every false idea you had about yourself. And through it all, you stay right there. You don't rush to fill the uncomfortable empty spaces. You allow them to exist. By doing this, you reclaim something most men never experience. From that quiet place, a different voice emerges inside you. Not shouting, but steady. Not perfect, but genuine. And when you finally move forward again, you move with substance. Your words carry more weight. Your presence feels centered and solid. Not because they somehow change the world around you, but because they finally return to your true self. Here is the reality. Our world doesn't need more men who simply blend into the crowd. It needs men who can sit quietly with themselves and walk away with clarity. Because that kind of man doesn't desperately chase after things, doesn't constantly try to prove himself, doesn't beg for attention. He naturally receives it. Because his energy doesn't ask for permission. It makes a statement. Point number 2, breaking the approval addiction. Most men are addicted to something they can easily see. Not alcohol, not drugs, not gambling, but something far more subtle. Approval from others. They check their phones first thing after waking up, not because they need information, but because they crave validation. Did she text back? Did they like what I posted? Did anyone notice me? It seems harmless enough, but it's neediness disguised as connection. It's dependency wearing a friendly face. What makes this addiction so dangerous is its invisibility. Nobody warns you about it. There is no rehabilitation center for it. No friends stage an intervention. But it slowly eats away at who you are, because it doesn't just affect what you do. It rewires how you think about yourself. Constantly seeking approval makes you smaller. You say yes when everything inside you wants to scream no. You laugh at things you don't actually find funny. You avoid silence, avoid honesty, avoid standing alone, all to avoid rejection. You think you replaying it safe, but really, you replaying small. You retrading your authentic voice for temporary comfort, your true identity for momentary applause, your freedom for a sense of belonging. Over time, this need to be liked becomes a prison. You might decorate the walls with compliments from others, but deep down, you trapped, confined in the image others have created for you, not becoming the man you were meant to be. The truth is, approval is like a drug. It hits you quickly, then fades away. And like all quick highs, it leaves you needing more and more. More attention, more validation, more performance. But eventually, you burn out. Not because you grew weak, but because you've been wearing a mask for too long. And masks, no matter how comfortable they might seem at first, eventually become unbearably heavy. But there is another path forward. It is not easy, but it is real. It begins with a detox, a deliberate step away from the constant need for others' approval. This approval detox begins when you stop checking your phone constantly throughout the day. You quit molding your thoughts to match whatever room you're in. You begin asking yourself tougher questions. Am I doing this because I truly believe in it, or just because I want others to like me? That single question changes everything about how you live. You stop pursuing quick agreements from others. You quit apologizing for having high standards. You no longer waste time explaining yourself to people who weren't really listening to you anyway. At first, this feels exactly like withdrawal symptoms. You notice the quiet. You feel the space between you and others. You hear those worried thoughts asking, what if they don't? Do they like me anymore? But instead of running from these feelings, you sit with them. You breathe through the discomfort. You let that uncomfortable feeling sharpen who you are. Gradually, A different voice emerges inside you. Not loud or dramatic, but solid and grounded. It's your authentic voice, the one that has been buried under years of putting on an act. This voice doesn't speak to get attention. It speaks because it has something worth saying. Then comes the transformation. You stop sending messages just to stay on people's radar. You quit laughing at jokes you don't find funny. You begin valuing your time, your truth, and your peace of mind. People around you notice something is different. They sense a certain weight in your presence, a calmness in your eyes. You don't desperately seek attention anymore. You naturally command it. That is the surprising twist. When you stop trying so hard to be noticed, you become impossible to ignore. Why? Because men who chase approval end up looking like everyone else. But men who choose themselves stand apart from the crowd, not by being louder, but by being aligned with their true self. You know exactly what you believe. You know precisely what you will and want to accept. And most importantly, you know who you truly are when nobody is watching. That's the kind of man people remember, not because he was the loudest in the room, but because he couldn't be easily swayed. This approval detox gets messy. It costs you fake friendships, surface-level smiles, and temporary praise from others. But what you gain is everything that truly matters. You gain genuine respect that wasn't demanded but naturally earned. You gain inner peace not from hiding who you are, but from standing firmly in your truth. And you gain personal power not from controlling others, but from having clarity about yourself. So ask yourself honestly, are you still living just to be liked by others? Still adjusting who you are to make everyone else comfortable? Or are you finally ready to choose yourself? Because once you truly do, really commit to it, something fundamental changes. You stop chasing after people. You stop explaining yourself constantly. You stop performing like your life is a never-ending audition. You simply become who you truly are. And the world watches with respect. There comes a moment in every man's life when all the noise fades away, and what remains is stillness. Not forced quiet, not empty silence, just peaceful calm. And in that silence, something powerful happens. For the first time in possibly years, the mental fog lifts. Not because the world around you suddenly changed, but because you step back from it all. You turn down the volume on the expectations, the pressure, the endless opinions from others. And finally, you could clearly hear what had been waiting underneath all that noise. Your authentic self. Being alone isn't the same as being isolated. It is a process of restoration. It is removing layer after layer of everything that isn't truly you, so you can finally recognize what is. When you caught up in the chaos of daily life, you were just reacting to everything. You rushed. You were constantly adjusting, conforming, performing. You were always checking if you were doing things correctly according to someone else's standard. But when you deliberately spend time alone, you begin to slow down and see more clearly. When you spend time alone, you learn to watch rather than immediately react. You start noticing what you allowing into your mind, your schedule, and your inner life. You suddenly realize how many of your thoughts were never actually yours to begin with. The dreams you've been chasing weren't your own. The way you've been living wasn't what you truly wanted. Even your definition of success was given to you by others. All this time, you've been pursuing a life that never felt right for you. But something changes when you step away from it all. When your social media goes silent. When you put down your phone. When your calendar has empty spaces. Something new emerges. Mental clarity. You begin asking yourself better questions. Not, what do other people want from me? But, what do I genuinely want from myself? What activities give me energy? What situations drain me? Who do I become when I'm around certain people? And am I proud of that person? Being alone allows you to face these important questions without distractions, without feeling rushed to answer quickly, without needing anyone's approval for your answers. You sit with these thoughts. You acknowledge feelings that have been buried. You breathe through uncomfortable realizations. And gradually, like wiping fog from a mirror, your vision becomes clearer. You stop pretending you're okay with situations that feel wrong. You stop accepting shallow relationships. You stop lying to yourself just to avoid feeling uncomfortable. And you begin living in alignment with your true self. Not perfectly, but authentically. Not polished, but honest. You start saying no without feeling guilty afterward. You create space for yourself, not because you becoming distant from others, but because you finally being selective about what deserves your time and energy. You begin ending certain relationships, not out of anger, but from a place of clarity about what is truly important to you. Time alone doesn't just clear your thinking. It sharpens your ability to see what matters. You become purposeful in your actions. You no longer wake up just trying to survive until bedtime. Instead, you wake up with a sense of direction. Your daily habits support your true goals. The people you choose to spend time with reflect your core values. Your surroundings become a reflection of who you really are, not who you were trying to be for others. And something else changes too. You stop explaining your decisions to people who will never understand them anyway. You don't feel the need to argue your point. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You simply live according to your truth, and your actions speak for themselves. That's when you realize you are no longer available for unnecessary drama. You are no longer vulnerable to being manipulated. You are no longer influenced by surface-level noise and distractions. You re-grounded, and that solid foundation makes you unmovable. People might disagree with you, misunderstand you, or even walk away from you. Yet you remain centered and calm. Because now, you are not living to please them. You reliving in harmony with the man you were meant to become all along. That's the real gift of spending time with yourself. It burns away all the distractions. It eliminates the noise. It removes the versions of yourself that were never truly authentic. What remains is a man with peace inside his heart and purpose in his steps. He doesn't talk to impress others. He speaks because his words have meaning. He doesn't chase after things. He builds them. And he doesn't need everyone to understand him because he finally understands himself. So if your life feels quiet right now, don't panic. That silence, the emptiness, it is an invitation. It's your life asking you to slow down and truly listen. You don't need more attention from others. You don't need more likes on social media, more text messages, more romantic partners, or more noise surrounding you. What you need is more stillness, more solitude, more moments where you sit alone and finally connect with the man you've been ignoring for too long, your authentic self. The man who walks by himself, too broken. He is rebuilding himself. He is not running away from the world. He is returning to his center, refining himself, sharpening his focus, removing everything that was never truly part of who he is. He doesn't move like someone waiting for others to choose him. He moves like someone who has already chosen himself. And when you become that kind of man, life begins to align naturally. The right people remain in your life. The wrong ones gradually disappear. And opportunities don't have to be desperately chased anymore. They simply find their way to you. This isn't some magical thinking. It's mastery of your own life. If these words about silence and self-discovery resonate deep within you, don't just scroll past. Leave a comment below and answer this question. What is one distraction you are ready to eliminate from your life starting today? If you found this video useful, please like it and subscribe to the channel. There are more videos on this channel that will help you become a better version of yourself.